I've got the Samsung LNT4066 that I wanted to talk to you about today. And this set came in to us for repair. The set comes on and it has sound, so I know the main board and the power supply is working okay. Let me go ahead and I've got it on my stand here laying down horizontally or diagonally, so I'll go ahead and it's a good idea to have one of these little stands. Makes it really easy to work on your TV, and you can look up, you can see the screen through here while you're working it. So I've got it on my stand. I've already got all the screws taken out of the back, so let me take the back off and show you what I found on this one. First thing we want to do once we get the back off of this TV is take a look at the power supply, just to make sure that all these capacitors look good, because if you know anything about Samsungs, there's been problems with the capacitors bulging from high ESR temperatures. All these look absolutely perfectly well, and I know the set's staying on because it has sound. Normally when the capacitors are bad, the set will shut down and just not stay active. So I've got my, this is a Variac, I've got the TV plugged into it, and it measures the AC current. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it on, and you can see the initial startup. Then you can see the panel light up here in a second. Panel lights up. And then after that it goes back down to 0, so the inverter is actually shutting the set down. And I'll show you what I found here. So I've got my voltmeter on AC volts here, and what I'm going to do is each one of these little transformers, there's a whole bunch of them here, I don't know if I showed you with the back off, the cover off the inverter. Each one of those little transformers drives one fluorescent tube. So let me just try to get it zoomed in here. And what I'm going to do, I'm on AC volts, and the center two pins are a feedback pin that goes into this little diode right here. All the cathodes on these are tied together, and it runs the feedback. So each one of these little silver tabs is a test point. So if I measure the AC voltage just as I turn the set on, and right before it shuts down, right when the panel lights up, you can see on that one it's about 0.2 of a volt. Now let's see, I'm going to come up here. I've already determined which transformer is bad, and it's this one, so I'm going to put, or no, it's not the transformer, it's the tube itself. I've done ohmmeter checks on the transformer and I've rang it, so the transformer is good. So I'm going to put the meter on this one, and you'll see the difference in voltage here. When the inverter comes on, see it's about 1.4 volts, so that's the one that's actually triggering the shutdown. This fluorescent tube is drawing too much current, and it's going into each one of these diodes, and it goes back and it triggers the set and tells it that it needs to shut down, that it's having a problem. So I'm going to show you how to just do a quick and simple bypass on this to alleviate this problem. By the way, the part number on these little transformers is BL-1040. They're also used in several other Samsung sets. In fact, I have one right here that came out of a, this is out of a 52-inch Samsung. See if I can get the camera to refocus on it. Anyhow, this one came out of a 52-inch Samsung, and it was having the same problem, other than this transformer was actually defective. The end of it had broken from the factory, so it had been arcing. So let me show you how to alleviate this problem. First thing we're going to do is just simply strip the transformer off the circuit board. You don't need a lot of special tools or anything to get these off, just some solder and a soldering iron. They come off pretty easy. I'm just going to add just a little bit of solder to each lead real quickly, and while I'm heating it up, I'm just going to lift the end of it very slightly. Got that end completely loose. Same thing on this end. Pops right off. You've got just the pads. All you want to do is just take a little jumper and solder from the very end pad to the other very end pad, leaving the two pads in the middle completely untouched. Now I'll go ahead and power the set back on. Now there's nothing connected to this feedback line, so it's just going to kind of float around and do whatever. You can see it's 1/10 of a volt. The other ones are 1/10, 1/10, 2/10. That one's drawn a little bit more. It's when it gets up into the like 3 volt range that it causes the set to shut down. Also, you can switch it to DC volts and measure the voltage on the cathode over here. It's 1.1 volts. I should have showed you this before, but originally with the transformer in circuit on the cathode, it would come on, it would go up to 12 volts for just a moment, then it would shut the set down. So you could probably put a DC power supply on the cathode of these diodes, run up the voltage, and find out exactly what the shutdown voltage point is. There's only one small drawback doing this, and I'll show you what that is in just 1 second. Alright, so here's that same set up and running. I'm going to go in here and show you the test pattern really quick. It's in the FBE2. Go into pattern select. And if you look really close, I hope it'll show up in the video, but you can see a very thin dark stripe right here. Let's get some different patterns, maybe you can see it easier. I'll go on the scrolling pattern. So as you can see, it's got a very, very dim band because I have removed one fluorescent tube out of the equation. This customer should get many more years out of it. In fact, this set has very low hours on it. It only has 1,200 hours according to the service menu, but you can clearly see just barely a dark band on there. Incredibly hard to see except when you have a fixed video source like this. On moving video, it probably wouldn't even be noticeable, but at least you'd save your TV that way. Let's see, this one, if I go up into the option byte, it tells me how many hours it has on it. 1,216 hours, so fairly new TV as far as time frame goes. It's about 4 or 5 years old, but it's hardly ever used, so very odd for that to happen. But I have seen this a few times. Just wanted to prevent somebody from throwing a good TV in the garbage. This only works with the types of inverters like this model that actually has a main inverter high voltage transformer on the power supply and then many sub transformers to distribute the high voltage to each fluorescent tube individually. This kind of thing will not work on the type that has a master inverter board with only like 6 or 7 transformers that runs on 24 volts. It has to be the model that has the big transformer on the power supply to feed the high voltage to the inverter boards, and then has many, many small transformers like this. So, like I said, hopefully this will help down the road, save a couple TVs from hitting the junkyard. There was one other thing I wanted to mention on doing the test on this, that you need to check each transformer individually as you power the set on, because the backlight only stays on for about 1/10 to 1/4 of a second before it shuts it down. So on those little silver test points I showed you, you have to test each one individually, put your meter on it, power the set up, watch the voltage, go to the next one. And I finally found it about halfway up. Sometimes it might be the first one you check, it might be the last one you check, but keep in mind it's normal for these things to run a tolerance of about 10 to 20% difference between readings. There's another thing that you can do on the transformer itself is you can check the resistance measurements on these 2 pins on the very bottom of it here with an ohm meter to determine if it is the transformer that's actually defective. And that'll let you know sometimes. Turn this light on so I can show it to you a little bit better. But if you check the resistance measurements of the 2 output pins, compare all the transformer resistance measurements together, if you have a defective one, it'll be off drastically. If it's over 5 to 10 to 20%, it's pretty acceptable. But if you come across one that's off by 60-70%, then you want to be suspect of that transformer just being defective. In this case, the transformer was fine. It's the tube that was actually bad.